Football Turca breaking news report. We've got a situation going on right now with Ankaragücü. Ankaragücü seemingly having some more financial difficulties. They already had some issues earlier this season, of course, which led to a lot of players terminating their contract towards the end of the first half of the season. The club ended up scrambling to get pretty much an entirely new squad together that worked out well for them. They've avoided relegation. They're just 1 point now away from mathematically avoiding relegation in the next two games, but theoretically at least they look safe. It all seems to be good, and we're going to talk a little bit about what exactly is going on with Ankaragücü right now, because there's some misinformation out there. They might get a 6-point deduction, things like that. People getting a little confused about that. Would that mean Ankaragücü still could relegate this season? All that kind of stuff. A lot of stuff that doesn't seem to be very clear right now. So I've got an expert here to talk to you about Ankaragücü. Nadeem Raja joining me live from Scotland. Nadeem, can you tell our listeners what exactly is going on right now at Ankaragücü?
So we've got a couple of issues with two present players who have just terminated their contracts, and the kind of biggest issue is with Michael Klukowski, who's a Polish-Canadian player that we had back in 2011. So a couple of weeks ago, the club received a letter from his lawyers basically saying that if we don't pay his outstanding salary, it's about €120,000 that the players owed, and if we don't pay that, the club could face a 6-point deduction. There's also €500,000 compensation to be paid on top of that as well. So a lot of the kind of early reports were that the 6 points were going to kind of come off the club this season, and people starting to panic because that would ultimately lead to relegation for the club. But thankfully, the 6-point deduction only relates to the start of next season, which again is not ideal, but it's better than that happening this season. The club's president, Mehmet Yener, spoke last night to Turkish TV saying that the club will pay the €120,000 immediately and there won't be a 6-point deduction. And then we have just found out over the last week as well that probably our two best players, to be honest with you, JJ and Thiago Pinto, have both terminated their contracts due to non-payment of salary as well. So both players are free to go, which is disappointing for the club because we won't be able to command any transfer fee for both players. JJ apparently met with representatives from Besiktas and Trabzonspor in January, who both clubs were interested in signing him at the end of the season, and there was a couple of foreign clubs. And Thiago Pinto, what me and you have had a chat about Pinto in the past. You've got a very high opinion of him, and so do I. So again, you're losing two key players there for nothing, and it's just a continual bad news for the club that we get a bit of good news in January with all these players coming in. We go on a good run, but then as soon as there's a bad run of results, you know that it's the players must not be getting paid their wages, and here it's happening again. We only need 1 point from our last two games against Sivasspor and Göztepe to actually stay up. But losing these players, I wouldn't bet that we would win those last two games with the players that we've been left with. So although we've got a good chance of staying up, I think I wouldn't be surprised at the same time if we did get in.
Yeah, it's for next season. It's definitely going to be a battle, especially if you would get that 6-point deduction. But hopefully that won't happen. But fortunately, at least clearing some things up here that Ankaragücü will not get a deduction this season, of course. So I think it's safe to say Ankaragücü will be safe. I don't really think you'll need that point, but we'll have to wait and see. I've made a lot of bold claims this season where this team is out, that team is out, this team that, and then it turns out to blow up in my face. So I'm not gonna act like the Messiah and say that you're safe yet. But it's a it's a problem, a reoccurring issue, a reoccurring team we see with a lot of Turkish clubs. Beşiktaş have had their fair share of that this season too, where players haven't been getting paid. Trabzonspor have had plenty of that in the past. Galatasaray have had plenty of that in the past. It continues to surprise me that Fenerbahce, despite all the financial peril they are in, you never really hear anything coming out of that club from players not receiving their wages, from former players suing the club and claiming their wages. So somehow that club, despite having the biggest debt in Turkish football, with over 660 million euros in debt, which is double almost what Beşiktaş have, which is more than double what Galatasaray have. No, wait, sorry, a little less than double than Galatasaray have, and triple what Trabzonspor have. It's a huge amount of debt, but somehow that club still manages to do what they're supposed to do, and that's pay the wages of these players. Because at the end of the day, I think as fans, sometimes we like to demonize these players a little bit too much. But it's understandable when you're waiting 7-8 years for your wages that you're gonna ask for compensation on top of that as well. I think I don't think we can blame the player there. They have to make a living. Of course, I think you tweeted it as well. It's a little bit counterintuitive that FIFA tell the club you have to pay them, but on top of that you're going to have to pay an even larger fine of 500,000. Now, if that's going to go all to the player, then that's a different thing. But if FIFA are going to take their chunk out of that would kind of be a little upsetting, I would say. But yeah, that's unfortunately the truth of Turkish football, which we see and which you have seen for so many years. But Nadeem, I want to thank you for clarifying that for us and for informing everyone on what's going on with the Ankaragücü right now. And I wish you all the best for the remaining of the season and, of course, for next season.
No problem. I appreciate that, and hopefully next season I get invited on and we can talk about some positive things happening at Ankaragücü for a change.
We'll definitely have you on during the summer and maybe talk a little bit about how the team is shaping up, and maybe talk a little bit about what you think of this past season for Ankaragücü, because it's been an interesting one, really, from highs to lows and back to highs, and now for a moment it seems back to a little bit of lows, but definitely an interesting season you guys have had.
Definitely, that's the life of being an Ankaragücü fan, like constantly up and down. Like we had mentioned this in the blog at the Round Ball in Ankara, that when things were going well, you're only going to be a couple of weeks away from the issues coming back again. Mm-hmm. So we'll just need to keep our fingers crossed for next season. And I spoke to the club's spokesperson, Tuna Yilmaz, he's actually resigned a few months ago. I spoke to him when I was over, and he basically said that one of the problems I've got is every time that the club win a match or draw a match, the TFF hold back their prize money, so the club don't receive that money. Mm-hmm. It goes towards Meli Gökçek's debts that he ran up from 9-10 years ago. So what he said is, if we can stay up this season, next season will be the first season that we actually physically get money coming from the TFF. So hopefully that if we stay up, that will make a big difference next season. We can start paying the players.
It's just 100,000 Turkish lira every time you win a match, but yeah, it's a lot of money for a club that doesn't have massive sponsor deals and all that just yet. But at least you have your new stadium. That'll definitely start bringing in some extra cash to the club, hopefully, in the next couple of months, in the next couple of years, and maybe slowly, patiently. This is one of the biggest missteps, I think, of all clubs, is that they try to run before they can walk, and hopefully, if there's discipline, enough discipline to build up slowly, I think Ankaragücü could be in a good position in a couple of years down the road. But it's all about that discipline, something which is a rarity in Turkish football, unfortunately. But once again, Nadeem, thank you very much for coming on and explaining all that to us.
No worries, mate. Speak to you soon.